Now we're looking at the Amtrak station. This is from just downstream of the tracks on Chapala Street.
In Santa Barbara, disasters are a reality and can strike without warning. The 1925 and 1978 earthquakes damaged properties across the county. We can all remember when there were 4 major wildfires in a matter of 22 months that devastated the foothill areas and destroyed homes, and flooding that covered much of the low-lying areas in downtown and along the waterfront.
If you just go back in our history, we've had massive earthquakes. Of course, we've had massive fires. We've also had a lot of floods. The area has a history of having a major tsunami at one point. And so we know these things are going to happen, and that's why we take it much more seriously than any other community I've seen.
Emergency responders are the first to hit the streets, almost immediately putting out fires, rescuing victims, maintaining law and order, and restoring services. But there are also other emergency responders working behind the scenes during a disaster, their job no less critical than the first responders out on the front lines. They are the men and women that run the Santa Barbara City Emergency Operations Center, or EOC. These EOC workers field urgent phone calls and emails from disaster response agencies. They post information to whiteboards and websites. They collect and compile emergency information, communicate with the media to get urgent information out to the public. They make sure field workers get the right equipment and supplies to do their jobs. They find more staffing when local responders are exhausted. They document disaster costs for future reimbursement. They track down relevant weather information and intelligence reports related to the disaster response. They keep the policy group and other decision makers informed of the overall situations. They are at the hub of disaster coordination.
In a good EOC, you see a group of people that's planning for the next operational period. Okay, and so they're realizing that they can't do it all themselves, because that's the other part of the ownership thing, is you have to realize that you're going to have to let somebody else come in and sit in your seat and run things, and you have to have everything ready to go for them.
EOC staff receives situational information from the field or from the department operating centers, then updates status display boards and electronic communication systems in order to make the information readily available not only to city staff, but to the public as well. Staff also provides resource support to the field. If they need staff, equipment, or supplies, the EOC will coordinate and provide those resources to them.
The emergency is happening out in the field, but this is where all of the information is filtered into so that we're able to support all of the field staff and our DOCs, which are our department operations centers, to keep them up and running, to make sure that they get the resources that they need, to make sure that we're coming up with plans of how are we going to work for the next 8 hours, how are we going to work for the next 12 hours.
We're preparing messages based on the information we're given directly from staff. It also means that we're confirming information that we are seeing in the news media and where people are calling us and telling us that things are happening and they want to know whether it's correct.
In major incidents, the City Emergency Response Organization also includes Department Operating Centers, or DOC. When resources are stretched thin, the Department Operating Center is a critical link between the crews in the field and the EOC. As an example, in the Public Works DOC, they directly support crews for water, wastewater, engineering, and motor pool. The DOC is a critical link of information from the field crews to the EOC.
I'm one of 3 managers of the logistics DOC, and our role is to make sure that the room is prepared, that people are notified, and that all the equipment is laid out so that everybody can be ready to respond to calls and take action.
Logistics is also responsible for providing radios and making sure that everybody communicates. So we can either use our own staff, we can get IAS to come in and set up computers, we can get electronic maintenance to come in and set up radios. We also track, more recently on this last event, we had to track our satellite phones and who has what.
As in most communities, emergency management staff alone cannot run the center. The Emergency Operations Center depends on trained city staff and workers from other areas of local government to maintain accuracy of information and the flow of resources to affected areas during the disaster.
The staff in the Emergency Operations Center are also first responders, and they're here right away to set up and get ready to do whatever it is that needs to happen in the field or within the city itself and keeping the infrastructure going.
Service in the EOC is a valuable skill-building experience. People that have a position in the EOC can find hidden talent in themselves, which allow them to be efficient and effective in disaster service coordination.
It's exciting and it's a little crazy. It's a chaotic crazy. It's an organized chaotic craziness, I guess you could say. During the day, obviously during most emergencies, that's when it's more active.
There's a lot of things going on. For me, I watch things, I try and get information, and I've got all these little hubs of activity that, and you kind of monitor the process. If you go to each one of the sections, you can see how they're really, really busy.
Not only is it a satisfying feeling to know that you are helping others in the community, but there is also a certain excitement that goes along with working in a disaster.
You know, you really get to know your fellow city employees and again, some people in the community that work with us. So it's a like hands-on, committed type of work.
Dedication, skill, and enthusiasm are needed and valued in the Emergency Operations Center. Know where you can make a difference in your community the next time disaster strikes. If you would like to be a part of the EOC staff, contact your supervisor and become an EOC team member. For more information, contact the city's Office of Emergency Services.